severe weather threatens your hometown, turn to the forecasters on WCCO 4 News. Clear weather coverage you can count on. Paul Douglas on the WCCO forecasters pinpoint severe weather and show you where it's going right down to the street where you live. With tools like Neighborhood Radar and Town Alert, nobody else in the Twin Cities does a better job of keeping you on top of the weather. Even when the weather's stormy, the weather coverage is always clear. The forecasters, only on WCCO 4 News.
Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Kathy Wurzer.
And I'm Jim King. The Twisters picked up pieces of their lives and dumped them dozens of miles away. And we begin with several live reports on the tornadoes that swept across the area tonight. Bill Hudson has pictures of major damage on the campus of Gustavus Adolphus. And Dennis Doda is about 60 miles away where some of that debris landed. Well, our team coverage continues now with some of the worst damage. And Bill Hudson is in St. Peter right now. Bill, what can you tell us?
Well, we can tell you off the top, sadly, the one fatality has been confirmed as a 6-year-old child, Jim. There are multiple injuries here, people being treated at a Mankato hospital, at least 3 people listed in critical condition. However, the search is far from over. People are emerging from their homes this evening just dazed at the devastation. It is so widespread from one end of town to the other. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of buildings that sustained damage. Downtown, we can tell you, looks very much like a war zone.
Residents of St. Peter heeded the sirens and warnings and took cover. It was shortly after 5 p.m. when the Twisters scored a direct hit.
Yeah, I could see it coming up past the church, and by the time I saw the twisting, we hit the basement, and it was over in just a matter of a couple minutes.
Yeah. When they emerged from basements, folks were dazed at the damage. Homes ripped apart, trees uprooted, the streets of downtown littered with shattered glass. Plows are being used to clear paths for rescue workers. 50 people took shelter at a McDonald's away from the large glass panes.
As soon as we heard it and saw something coming, we just got everyone out of there, got back in the grill area, and then all of a sudden the playland just burst it and everyone just ducked.
With power lines and trees blocking roadways, major highways are being detoured. Homeowners like Walt Timmerman are devastated by the sight of a once beautiful town torn to shreds.
There's nothing left. I mean, I got every tree in my yard, and I had 85-foot trees, and they're gone. Everything.
Plus your racing car and
I had a garage. I parked my van where I thought it'd be safe, but my garage went on top of it, so yeah, that's pretty bad.
That's an understatement. It is very bad. This is just some of the tin that's just twisted apart and just dropped down here in the middle of downtown. Behind us, there's a lumber yard, the place where people would be going tomorrow to pick up supplies to cover up their shattered windows. The lumber yard has shattered itself. So again, Jim, just complete devastation here in St. Peter. We can also tell you that 2 radio towers were blown over, as well as the steeple off of Christ Chapel up at Gustavus Adolphus sustained some major damage up there. We'll show you more of that tomorrow.
What's the status on the missing right now, Bill?
The missing, they are doing a door-to-door, house-to-house search, and that is far from over. They have a lot of work to do. It'll go on throughout the evening. At this point, they don't even have numbers yet in terms of the number of people that could be missing.
Of course, going to be a different picture when the daylight arises in the morning, Bill.
It certainly will be.
Thanks very much.
Well, as the storm pushed north and east, it tore into the small town of La Center. That's about 15 miles northeast of St. Peter. Deborah Sherman has that part of this story.
That's right. If you think that St. Peter is bad, you should see La Center, because a tornado just ripped through there and shut the town down. No one in, no one out tonight, because there is no electricity and there are some pretty bad gas leaks there. But the good news is nobody was seriously hurt or killed, because people had a warning that this tornado was bearing down on them.
We have no power in several locations in the area and major gas leaks. We're not letting nobody in the Lee Center.
The tornado struck hard and fast. 32 trailer homes flattened, huge trees snapped, businesses junked, the roofs scattered and wrapped around cars.
Entire Main Street's gone and Highway 99, and came down here and looked, the roof's gone. So, talked to some people, came through and just wiped out everything.
This is the worst of it. Trailers folded in or opened up in the twister, damaging or destroying most everything. But the 50 families who lived here were not hurt because they crowded inside this storm shelter when the tornado touched down.
Screams, lots of screams. They had the door open to the shelter when the tornado passed through us, so everybody was screaming.
Now, Hernandez and her 11-month-old are living in the school with dozens of others, wondering what they'll do now.
I want to go home. I want to go home. I don't care if we have power, I just want to go home.
Everybody wants to go home, but unfortunately, a lot of the place looks just like here, just all twisted up, and everything is just all over the ground, people's personal belongings, things that really are completely destroyed. Now, the high school there is running off of a generator, and most people will be staying there until the gas leaks are plugged up. But they say that power may not come back there for several days, and when it does, they will definitely let the people go home there. By the way, this is their second tornado there in 4 years, but we're told that this one is by far the worst. Back to you.
Deb, talk a little bit more about those gas leaks, if you would, please. Are they plugged up yet?
They're working on that right now. They're hoping that they can get them plugged up within about 2 hours. And then, of course, they will let people go back home if they have homes. And even then, they'll be camping out in the dark.
All right. Thank you, Deb.
All right, Deb, thanks. And, of course, the team coverage continues. And now with Dennis Doty, you mentioned the debris. And here's a spot from the debris resulted actually about 60 miles away. It landed where Dennis Doty is now. Dennis, can you fill us in on that story?
Well, folks had a scare of their own here in the southern part of the Twin Cities tonight. The sirens sounded in Apple Valley, but once the danger had passed, people were left with just that sheer and awesome disbelief at the power that a tornado can deliver. All kinds of garbage and artifacts were dumped here this far to the north, all apparently dropped, delivered, that is, by tornado airmail.
St. Peter. Right here.
The obit page from a St. Peter newspaper, just one of the special deliveries that fell with the rain on Lynette Stranger's Apple Valley yard. Also fluttering down construction materials and pages of a textbook.
And then the receipt from some printing company out of St. Peter.
Across the street, neighbor Richard Cornell also found a special delivery, also with a St. Peter address.
You know, and I think after about 5 or 10 minutes after we picked up this stuff, then the sirens went off around here. So it was kind of interesting. Scary and interesting.
We talked to another man in Eagan who said he found documents that apparently had come from the public library in La Center. Damage quite widespread, and the artifacts lay all about us here. Back to you.
Awesome display of power. All right, Dennis, thanks very much. The storms also hit hard in the small town of Comfrey in southern Minnesota. A tornado went through the center of town, destroying homes and businesses. A dozen people were hurt. Roads into the town are blocked, and the National Guard is helping out. About 100 people cannot sleep in their own homes tonight. In all, NSP says that there are about 2,200 people in the southern Minnesota area without power because of the storms.
The devastating storm that hit southern Minnesota has many communities picking up the pieces this morning. One child is dead and dozens of others are injured after the wicked weather ripped through several small towns. WCCO's Bill Hudson is in St. Peter, a place where some of the worst damage is. Bill, it's daylight now. What can you see behind you?
You can see a lot, and it is absolutely awesome. You cannot believe the devastation in St. Peter from one end of town to the other. We're right downtown, right off of Main Street. This is an area that was a lumber yard down by the river, completely gone. As we turn around here, this is looking up Main Street, actually north on 169 as you go towards the cities. Debris scattered all over, all these storefronts, windows blown out, bricks off buildings. See this brick building across the street? That's about a 100-year-old building, the old Wells Federal building. The roof is gone, bricks are falling down on the sidewalk. It's devastated as well. But the real story is when you go up this hill, that's up into the residential area of St. Peter. That's where the 10,000 residents live here in St. Peter, the area that rescue crews were going door to door last night in search of more victims.
Anybody up there? Hello, sir. Everybody okay here?
Firefighters went door to door in search of the missing or more victims. Despite the widespread devastation, casualties are amazingly low.
I hope I don't find anybody laying down. That's
pretty
what I hope.
fortunate there so far.
Yeah, we've been real good. We have everybody we've found, they've been up, talking, walking, but we don't want anybody down.
Heavy machinery was called in to pull apart this collapsed home, a college English professor's, whom friends hope and pray is away on spring break. By early morning, the tornado's fury had turned to fire. With the entire town without power, firefighters think a burning candle touched off this apartment blaze. No one was injured. Meantime, stunned victims await daybreak to assess the greater damage on their homes and businesses.
There was debris everywhere, trees, power lines are down everywhere. You couldn't get more than a block in your car. There was stuff everywhere.
It took just seconds for the tornado to turn a once stately Gustavus Adolphus campus into an ugly mess of shattered glass and gutted buildings.
There's nothing left. I mean, I got every tree in my yard. I had 85-foot trees and they're gone. Everything.
It is just from one end of town to the other, Dave. A devastation down here in St. Peter, a very, very sad sight. The good news is, however, that the overnight search, the door-to-door search that the firefighters were doing produced no further victims. David?
Bill, have you seen many people out on the streets this morning surveying some of the damage of their property?
They're just starting to come out now. Both entrances, 169 and 99, 22 are all blocked off, so gawkers, sightseers cannot get into town. But there are a number of people driving around. As you can see, a lot of utility trucks. Here's a gas truck, a mini Gasco truck coming through town now. There were a number of gas mains that were busted that they had to shut off to prevent further gas leaks and fires and so forth. But there are some people driving around. I suspect that they are residents just out to get their first real glimpse at this tremendous damage.
And it is devastating to see those pictures. Thanks a lot, Bill.
Sure.
15 miles northeast of St. Peter in the town of Le Center, people are waking up in shelters, unable to stay in their homes after the storm. Many folks spent the night in this school because much of the town is without power and many homes are destroyed. Others are doing what they can to help those who lost so much in the deadly storms, a scene that people here will never forget. Folks in Comfrey will be surveying the damage this morning after a tornado swept through their center of town. About 100 people are waking up away from their homes because of all the damage. Many homes and businesses are destroyed. At least a dozen people were hurt.
The day after the storm, and what an incredible story the pictures are showing us of death and destruction. Here's the latest. A 6-year-old boy is dead after a twister lifts the van he was in and rips it right off the road. At least 38 people are injured. 3 of them are in critical condition this evening. More than 500 homes in St. Peter are destroyed. More than 2,200 homes in St. Peter are damaged. 90% of the homes and businesses in Comfrey are damaged or destroyed. American Red Cross shelters housed 400 people overnight. And a Minnesota Senate committee has already approved up to $10 million in tornado relief money. We have a team of reporters covering the spring twisters, beginning with our own Don Shelby, who is live in St. Peter. Don?
We're standing here at what used to be the public school. It was turned into a community center not long ago. The wall was standing right here, was a 4-course brick wall. It has been blown in onto the gymnasium floor. On the other side of that, where the wall collapsed, a man was buried alive. Now here's the timeline according to the National Weather Service for how those storms hit. Tornadoes touched down in Comfrey at 4:40 in the evening. By 5:50, they had already gotten into St. Peter. Then they went on by 6 o'clock to Le Center. They kept right on going, twisting on through Lonsdale at about 6:20. Now, we already gave you the numbers, but the pictures bring home the most impact. Captain Dale Dobish in the Live Eye in the Sky helicopter recorded what is left of a lot of these St. Peter neighborhoods. He also flew over what is left of a rural feedlot operation, a damaged farmhouse surrounded by the foundations of farm buildings, and lumber that seems to be nothing but matchsticks. We have even more incredible pictures to show you, because wherever you point your camera in St. Peter or Comfrey, you're going to end up with an incredible picture. We want to continue now our team coverage with Mike Walsher standing by in St. Peter. Mike.
Well, that's right, Don. You know, the devastation here is so complete. This is not unusual. This was Gary Lacey's main floor to his house. It is now tipped up against his neighbors. I'm standing on his stairs to his basement, which were blown out of the basement, out of the house, and then dumped in his neighbor's front yard. You know, many of us believe that St. Peter was really one of the prettiest towns along the Minnesota River, with its old homes, its beautiful stately trees, and its old churches. And all of them, sadly enough, took the brunt of this tornado's wrath. The tornado damaged or destroyed hundreds of older homes in St. Peter, homes like the one Cindy Scramstad and her husband spent the last 2 years remodeling.
Yesterday we were sitting outside deciding how we were going to finish it off before the storm hit. But
Are you going to tear it down?
yeah, start all over.
On the southwest edge of St. Peter, these townhomes, many only 1 or 2 years old, were destroyed. Some wiped right off their foundations. Numbed residents picked through the rubble, hoping to salvage some valuables.
We've collected a lot of antiques through the years, and we've saved quite a few, but we've lost probably half. It's 40 years of collecting.
Governor Arnie Carlson stopped here late Monday afternoon to talk with storm victims. Elsewhere in St. Peter, the beautiful old churches sustained heavy damage. The Catholic Church probably will have to be demolished. The business district seemed to have some damage, but not nearly as bad as the residential neighborhoods. Well, you know, throughout St. Peter, people are just numb by this devastation. We've seen these kinds of scenes, folks looking through their garages, their homes, trying to pick up some personal belongings, some personal mementos, trying to get a little piece, salvage a little piece of their lives. Here's a trailer they pulled up to this house, and they picked out some old mud-splattered books, a variety of sewing machines, some Christmas decorations, anything people can find to remind themselves of some sense of normalcy and to grab on to what they can of their lives as their homes, many of the homes here, are destroyed. Don?
One death that we can report from this tornado. A young boy, making it even more sad. A 6-year-old child by the name of Dustin Schneider was killed when the van in which he was riding near St. Peter was blown off the road by the winds and went into a muddy area, and then because of some sort of vacuum pressure caused by the differential in pressure, the child was sucked out of the van and thrown something like 150 yards into that field, and he was killed. Now, there was another person near death at the time that all of this was happening. An amazing story of survival that we found when we got here. Producer John Wolf found a fellow by the name of Ricky Ham, who has to be tonight the luckiest man in St. Peter.
Buried, I think it was 12 or 15 feet of rubble.
Perhaps it was irony that Ricky Ham was walking to the hospital with a stomachache when Sunday's tornado ripped through St. Peter. He looked up just in time to see a wall of bricks and lumber falling toward him.
Couldn't see nothing. I just had one hit my back of my head and knocked me right out and just put myself on the ground. I just covered up my face, and there it was. All the stuff just kept on pouring on me. Couldn't get none of it off, couldn't do nothing. I was pinned to the ground.
Unable to move, Ricky could only holler and pray for help.
Well, when I was screaming for 3 hours, one of paramedics or somebody from town there heard me and started coming over and said, "You need help down there?" I said, "Yeah, I'm buried." They started undigging me.
He had a bruised shoulder, twisted knee, and a little bit of bruising on his ribs, but that was all. He is the luckiest person in St. Peter this evening. Several towns around St. Peter are cleaning up tonight. One of them is the town of Comfrey, and that cleanup process is going to be an extremely long process because that town has been devastated. And that is where Deborah Sherman is standing by live with more. Deborah?
Don, the National Weather Service has just told us that on a scale of 5, 0 to 5, Comfrey ranks third for damage. And here's the evidence of some of that. the tree right here uprooted. It's been here for many years. Look at this home behind me. It has shattered windows and the foundation is very bad. And this is actually one of the better homes. Many of the other homes are simply gone. And over here you can see sheet metal has just wrapped itself around things. And over there, more destruction everywhere. We've also learned that people here only had 45 seconds, a 45-second warning to find out that a tornado 1 mile wide was coming their way.
Getting out here today and looking at the mess, it's unbelievable.
And the things that mean so much to us are gone.
One by one, people are returning to their homes in Comfrey.
These windows broke open and everything went flying. It's a mess. I'm hoping that when the insurance guy comes that he will say it's a total loss, because it really is.
Gina Anderson grew up here.
Where do we begin over? And it was just a mess. And my father died 2 years ago, and I know if he was here, he'd be able to pick the pieces up, and I don't know if we ever will.
It is that bad all over town. The tornado wiped out 75% of Comfrey, damaged a century-old church, a school, a grain yard, businesses. Forget downtown. And in the neighborhoods, the tornado crushed 3 out of 4 homes. Volunteers are cleaning up, but whether this town of 500 lives or dies from the destruction will depend on the determination of its people. And they will need a lot of determination to clean up this place, because it is simply a mess. The National Guard has been escorting people into their homes like this one today just for an hour to let them get some emergency items. Tomorrow they hope to be letting them in for a little bit longer to get some bigger items, but no word on when this town will get back on its feet. Don.
All right, Deborah, thank you very much. Well, in St. Peter, of course, one of the most beautiful sights of this very, very beautiful town is the site of the campus of Gustavus Adolphus, probably one of the most photographed campuses in all of the college systems throughout the state of Minnesota. But it has been terribly, terribly harmed, and Kathy Wurzer has been on that story all day.
The devastation is hard to understand unless you see it yourself. Now, right behind us here on the hill is one of the big dorms on campus here at Gustavus Adolphus. Now, that dorm has sustained some heavy damage along with most of the other buildings on campus. The tornado swept down over the hill. Right behind us here, you see some other large trees that were damaged and swept out this way. The twister did, causing enormous amounts of damage, as we've already documented here for you. Now, 2,300 students go to Gustavus Adolphus College. They were all on spring break, so no injuries, thankfully. But driving through the now quiet campus, you really are struck by the enormity of the damage, and not one building isn't touched. And the damage may run deeper than just mere shards of glass. Some people say that the storm struck at the very heart of the school. Every morning at 10 o'clock, students, faculty, and staff come to worship at Christ Chapel, a landmark on campus. Now they're clearing up soggy hymnals and sweeping up shards of glass. The once picturesque campus is in ruins. The Gusties football team's home, Hollingsworth Field, is ripped up. Most of the trees on campus uprooted. Dormitories and other school buildings sustained heavy damage, windows blown out due to the powerful winds.
I live the second floor up here, probably towards the middle, but
Jason Raby is a sophomore from nearby Winthrop who came back from spring break to see what happened to his campus and his dorm.
I brought up like my stereo, like carpet, furniture. I left everything up here, so I hope I can get some of it back, or I don't know how they're gonna replace that, you know? Some things you just can't replace, like pictures, and I have a lot of stuff up there and I don't really care to lose it.
Now, we talked to the school president, and he says they might bring back students in about 2 weeks, but they're still assessing damage here on the campus. Don?
It is time to go back to the studio now, Amelia, but we're going to have a lot more to report here during the next 45 minutes of our broadcast.
Okay, Don, we'll see you then. To really get a feel for just how extensive the damage is in southern Minnesota, let's go up to Captain Dale Dobish, who's in our live Eye in the Sky helicopter. What have you seen today, Captain?
Amelia, we're out west of St. Peter, probably about 3 miles west of St. Peter, and one farm we're going to show you, this is a fairly, unfortunately, tragically typical farmstead between here and Comfrey. But one thing, if you notice, the debris is on the bottom side of your screen, which is actually the west side. All the other debris we've spotted today, or most of the other debris that we've spotted, has been out on the east side. So this does indicate that obviously there was a funnel cloud, and this happened to be on the one side of the the wind, so it blew the debris from the farm out the other side. So obviously a tornado damage. We're going to follow down the road here. You can see one reason they don't want people out in this area is there's just hundreds of power people out here working, trying to get the lines restored, electricity back in. And you can see here the devastation just along the edge of the road, the more farms, more homes and so forth, everything just very tore up. And this is the area that Mike Walcher was in with the townhomes that are all destroyed. Now earlier today I was with Chris Ottson and Dick Nordling, and we were out in the Lonsdale and the Lee Center area.
The tornado cut a path of destruction nearly 1 mile wide in St. Peter. Hardly a single home has been left untouched. Farms are blown apart with hardly any recognizable structures left. Century-old homes are in ruins. KRBI's radio tower is down, and at Gustavus Adolphus College, the church spire is in crumpled ruins. The tornado then raced toward Le Center. One target, a trailer park. Family homes are now twisted wreckage.
Glass everywhere inside. The inside, the living room is the worst, right in here, because there's glass, everything off the walls, my stuff is all over.
The tornado cut a path nearly a half a mile wide here, throwing semi-trailers into fields. Finally, the tornado settled on Lonsdale, destroying more than 10 buildings.
We were able to see the satellite dish in the backyard come up out of the ground, and then the neighbor's tree went down, and then the garage was gone, and we came flying out of the house to make sure them guys were all okay. In a matter of 3 minutes, it was gone.
Home video tells the story. The March twisters cut a swath 1.25 miles wide, the worst destruction by winds in a decade. Businesses as well as homes crushed, walls gone, interiors and lives exposed. Cars that weren't crushed were tossed around like toys. Victims, their early futile attempts to make things better. Even the fields of play were destroyed, bleachers bent like coat hangers. Livestock with no place to hide, dead. Once glorious concourse of the old Main at Gustavus, lined with 100-year-old trees, gone forever. We are standing here at what used to be a gymnasium where about 6 or 7 generations of St. Peterites were playing basketball. They would probably have loved to have watched that game tonight on television, but those people who would like to have watched it in the comfort of their own homes, so many of them don't have homes. Those that do are busy helping their neighbors. Those that do would not have a television set that's working because this town is blacked out tonight. There is no power down here in St. Peter. There is no power in much of this area that was stricken by those several tornadoes that came through this area. 2 people now have died as a result of the twisters. We told you, of course, earlier about the young boy that died, but the thousands of homes have been damaged or destroyed. The destruction's so bad that students at Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter may not be able to return for spring break for weeks and weeks. One man took pictures of the tornadoes as they came through, as they rolled through St. Peter and the other cities along the Minnesota River. He stepped out of his home in the farming area near New Ulm and took these pictures of the twister. You can see the storm is about a mile, perhaps 1.25 miles wide. The man shot this from his backyard, and then moments later he and his son had to run to the basement to take cover. They returned a little later to take pictures of the hail falling into their yard. We have to tell you that an 85-year-old man who lived in rural Hanska, who was injured when the twister hit late yesterday afternoon, has died of his injuries. The second victim who died was just 6 years of age. Dustin Schneider was killed when the force of one tornado literally sucked him right out of the van in which he was riding and dropped his body 150 yards away. Esme Murphy found a family who did everything right to save their own lives. Esme?
Well, Don, this is story of survival. We were 10 miles south of New Ulm in the farming country there, and if you've seen the movie Twister, you may recall the unbelievable scene of a cow being picked up by the tornado. Well, at this farm near New Ulm, celluloid met reality. This is what it looked like in the movie, a cow hurtling overhead along with all the other debris. But for Dean Schneider and his 2 oldest sons, life imitated art.
And pretty soon all the pieces of the barn came by, and I literally saw a cow fly.
by, blow by.
The Schneiders were way out in this field when they saw the twister coming. They were hoping to make it to this bunker for safety, but they couldn't. So instead, they had to cling to these bricks, hoping they'd make it through.
Then we knew we were in trouble.
As the three huddled against the bricks, the tornado chewed up and spit out their dairy farm. It was then they saw the cow fly, and Dean wondered if this was it.
That's when stuff started to hit us.
Schneider suffered a gash to his head, Matt a minor neck injury and scrapes. Miraculously, Matt was barely hurt. 70 of their cows were killed. Their farm is destroyed, but they are grateful.
Somebody was looking out for us, because there's no way we should have made it, like that.
Actually considered a miracle that they survived the 200-mile-an-hour plus winds in that farm field. Terrible damage done south of New Ulm, and this family was very, very lucky to get out alive.
Frederica Freiberg was also out and about tonight trying to make some sense out of what happened. And Fred, what did you find?
Well, I will tell you, Don, that we talked with a couple here in St. Peter who have suffered two big losses in just 1 year. Exactly 1 year ago, the couple we spoke with suffered a fire, and now their house has been blown to bits. And with devastation like this all around them, they are coping, like many in St. Peter tonight, by cleanup. They are concentrating on cleanup. But again, a double whammy for this couple is hard to take.
So I grabbed my wife and we got back in this corner.
And as the power went out and the crashing winds bore down, Paul and Lois Bjorklund held on to each other for dear life. When they made their way up from the basement, they saw half the house gone, the rest wrecked.
This is the front room.
And this was all new?
Yep, everything, rugs and everything was all new.
Everything was brand new because last March 31st, their home nearly burned to the ground. They had just finished rebuilding and refurbishing. How do you take it another time?
I hope it don't ever happen again.
Now, as we were leaving the Bjorklund's home, as in many locations here in St. Peter, their neighbors were also coming in to support them. Their neighbors were offering their whole family there cleaning up sloppy joes and hot chocolate, and they were taking them up on it, Don.
All right, Frederica, thank you.
A miserable, chilly day as Minnesota towns struck by tornadoes start the long road to recovery. Hello, I'm Dennis Doda. We should have a better idea of the scope of the damage by week's end, but early estimates are placed at least $50 million. Meantime, Mother Nature hampered the cleanup effort today with chilly rain, and snow could fly by tonight. There is some good